Colleagues, may I have your attention, please? Can we ask the colleagues who are still outside to come in so that we can start with our plenary session? I will take it that, ladies and gentlemen, and please bear with me for that assumption that we did our prayers as we started in the commissions this morning, Gambo, and that I take that this is continuation of the work that started in the commissions this morning. Once again, colleagues, thank you so much for coming back to this plenary after very intensive work that undoubtedly has been going on in our commissions. We can't wait to receive, because the true essence of what we have been doing over the past 2 days is now coming to be tested in what the 7 commissions will be sharing with us, which is the product of the work that we have been doing. I may in advance hasten to appreciate the commitment, the dedication which was demonstrated last night when we started with the commissions. I had thought that people would be tired at the time we started. But looking at the robustness of the discussions that ensued, it seemed that everybody came here full of appetite. Appreciated is the fact together to receive that work. We should have started at 10:30 already. It's we have lost some time, about an hour. We shall see then how we recover from that. So, colleagues, without any further delays, allow me to call upon the first commission, and that is commission number. You are not making any assumptions that all of us understand the work that you were doing. Then you take us through. I will be whether we should entertain any additional inputs on the work of the commission after commission, or we should actually wait until the end. So there is, of course, an indication from some of the colleagues already that perhaps we should reserve that for the end of all the commissions. So, colleagues, can you welcome on stage Mr. Mbade? I take it that he is reporting on behalf of Commission number one. Can you give him a very big round of applause?
Thank you very much, DDG. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. You know, this morning I find myself in the wilderness and I'm trying to locate the way up north. Whether I am seated or standing is neither here nor there. The important thing is that there is work at hand and it has to be delivered. And I happen to be the one to deliver it. Ladies and gentlemen, on progress and until an appropriate structure or school elected observing the time period. Community and stakeholder engagement. How were the communities or how were the stakeholders consulted? We debated this one. Identify schools that are proposed for closure, measure and repurposing based on learner enrollment figures, infrastructure and proximity. Then we start consulting. Consultation done through district education forums, notification of SGB in writing through section 12A and 33, notice, parents of school staff, labor unions, faith-based organizations, and local traditional leadership. Ladies and gentlemen, in the province we've got 12 districts. And the manner in which this is done differs from district to district. Consultation meetings, level, community, traditional authority, labor consultations, where we talk of public hearings as well as social facilitation. Notification of affected communities through print media, posters, and electronic media. This bullet here, even media, posters, and electronic media. This bullet here, even yesterday came to the plenary here, and people were saying, what if in the area where I am, there is no local radio station? What then? Now we're saying posters. Nature of feedback received from parents, learners, SGBs, and local leaders about what the process itself. What are the concerns and the objectives? Objections. They are putting forward reasonable concerns, reasonable objections. One, the children, especially the young ones. The loss of the ownership. Uchief Ngwekazi, apa ePedi, all of a sudden isikolo sakhe is going to be closed. And this really leaves a sour taste. Loss of governance role. I used to be the chairperson. I used to be the treasurer. Now all of a sudden my powers are taken by these officials. And that becomes a what? A problem and a contestation. Losing the convenience of nearby school and adjusting to the new environment. I'm familiar with this, and now there's this big thing coming my way. Perception of service withdrawal, political sensitivity, and decline of local development. These are the issues that we put forward by various stakeholders. But we then thought, let us just put it here this way. We identify a stakeholder, the resistance issue, the mitigation, as well as the responsibility office, because we don't want to leave it hanging. Who does what? The when part of it is not here, but who does what becomes critical. Parents refuse to accept due to safety concerns. We are saying provide scholar transport. But adhering to the what? To the policy and other issues. So we are saying UDOA and UDOT must really come to the party. Emotional attachment to these learning institutions, we conduct awareness. When we conduct this awareness, we are saying let us be honest to the people and say, what is this going to achieve? What are the benefits? Better resourcing, quality teaching and e-learning, and improved learner outcomes. Doesn't matter whether you are born in those rural areas, you can still become a what? A pilot. But how are you going to be if your school is not better resourced? SGBs, circuit managers, district rationalization and realignment coordinating committees must come to the party. Transportation of learners, provision of scholar transport. You know, we will continue, and I think even with the next commissioners, the issue of scholar transport will always come forward. But we are appealing, and we are saying, DOA and DOT must really assist. Local leadership, quite a number of issues have been raised there. Political resistance, demand for the use of closed what? Premises by the communities. But we are saying, let us join hands and assist. Learners, fear of the new environment, bullying and loss of friends to the new school that they are going to. And we are saying there has to be orientation programs that are in place, like peer buddy systems and counseling support. This is important, ladies and gentlemen, because these are human beings. Resource optimization and infrastructure. Was there improved efficiency in resource infrastructure use? And the answer is yes. And we are saying again, where there is transport provisioning, then everything else falls into place. Where there is infrastructure, then everything will then fall into place. But the absence of those really is putting a problem to the what? To the process. Better teacher ratio, broader curriculum coverage, budget consolidation, and more effective governance structures. So we see that. How were learner transport needs addressed? Even here, we are saying, as commissioners there, the available scholar transport in some schools was rationalized, and we all know that, to accommodate learners from closed learners. However, the reduction of scholar transport quotas affected this process negatively. In many cases, or in many of the districts, this service was not provided. The following activities were done through by the districts. 1, sketching of routes and verifying of routes per school, transport needs report compiled per school, per circuit, per CMC and district. DOE submitted scholar transport needs to DOT. Not all submitted routes are approved. 6.3, were upgrades made to receiving schools? In some schools, additional temporary classes were supplied, but in the majority of schools, no additional classrooms provided. As a result, most of the receiving schools could not continue with the process. I'm getting closer to the end. Number 7 is around monitoring, evaluation, and long-term impact. And the question is, what indicators are being used to track success? Ladies and gentlemen, you'll agree, and this was presented yesterday by Mr. Mfenyan. There is data on the number of merged, closed, and rationalized schools. Whether the process was followed or not is something else, but still there is data. For example, we now have mega schools that were established through this process that were not there before. And teaching and learning is taking place in those schools. Some of the schools have been resuscitated in the process due to increased learner numbers. They were once identified, and now all of a sudden we see growth in some of those schools. There are now conversions that have come up through this process. You would understand the issue of the realignment of these schools, moving the other grades that belong to that particular section. Some of the schools have been successfully repurposed to benefit community programs after conversions. There are remarkable notice of improvement in transformation and instructional leadership, and the morale of our teachers in some of those schools has improved. Has there been an evaluation, audit, or independent review of the process? Here we had to argue. We had to argue here because we had different interpretations of the question itself. But we agreed at the end that no, that has not been done. And we are putting that to the plenary. There is a need to institutionalize these processes so as to produce a credible report. There is a need, and the need is now. Lessons learned for future planning. Sithini na ke ngoko? Sithi. Lack of efficient stakeholder engagement hinders the implementation of the program. Sitsho. There is a need to improve collaboration within the various sections and the organs of government. Umbane ukwa HR. And then there is a colleague of mine, oku circuit management. I have a plan to close this school where HR advertises the what? The post. We need to talk to each other. What then happens to the resources? You know, there is a DDG, the scholar transport provisioning, as well as the nutrition program. There is equipment there. Equipment there. What happens to the equipment? Do we talk to each other? So we are saying we need to get together. Importance of attendance to IGR meetings organized by local and district municipalities. Where's the plans of the local government? Do they really know that 5 schools in that area are going to be closed or not? Do we take these to the IGRs for better planning? Let's get closer to each other. Let's talk to each other in one room and for one planning. Post-closure processes is not managed properly and can pose a challenge, yes, in other districts. But yesterday, it was raised there that Nelson Mandela Bay has done it very well. And we were asked to come closer to Nelson Mandela Bay. Why are we still having high municipal accounts? Do we really know the cause for that? Is it not because of these closed schools? That becomes critical. Let us look at these post-closure processes. Late provisioning of enablers can hamstring the process. I am not sure, but I stand to be corrected. We requested scholar transport at the beginning of the year. Now we are in what? September. Has that been provided? Then that could be the problem. Let's get closer and report on this. All reports must be presented to the relevant stakeholders. No confidential reports. Those reports must be presented to all relevant stakeholders. Recommendations as I close. 3 important things that we have to look at here. Practical strategies to implement circuit school landscape plans. 1, colleagues, we need, as of yesterday, to review the circuit school landscape plans. And they must be reviewed every 5 years. We operate in an open environment, and there are quite a number of changes. So we need to look into those staggered school landscape plans. Not only do that, mediate them. And mediate them to all the stakeholders. And for us to be able to do this, we need to establish staggered implementation teams. They have to be there as a driving force. Short-term actions within 6 months. Singenza ntoni ke ngoku? Let's review all the appropriate structures. The DRRCs, the district implementing teams, let's just review them. Where policy has been flouted, where it has, and in many occasions, we really need to mitigate it. We need to target now schools that are less than 50 and do something about them. Quick wins, we need to get to them and provide whatever enablers are needed. And for these schools, the process of public hearings must kickstart. Let us engage the communities. Schools must not be closed in the middle of the year. I know, schools really must not be closed in the middle of the year. That disturbs the system. Medium term, once we're done with the 50 less, we then target the 51 to the 80 learners, and then the 81 to the 100 learners. It's an elephant, it's huge. We need to take it pieces, bit by bit, up until we get to the end. Target schools with 51 to 80, and as I've said, plans to rationalize the existing scholar transport must be institutionalized, plans to rationalize and manage resources for both schools to refurbishment of existing hostels. We do have hostels, and I think we also have the hostel policy as well. We need to revisit that. Alignment of curriculum streaming to avoid intellectual genocide. This was mentioned yesterday. The issue of intellectual genocide, and it's my take home. Repurposing of closed schools to hostels and the post-closure processes really need to be looked at. With long term, beyond 24 months, application and establishment of new schools in accordance to SRRPs, establishment of hostels to accommodate a number of small schools, adequate provisioning of scholar transport, and budget for scholar transport to be administered and managed by the Department of Education. We were not aware, somebody told us yesterday, that elsewhere the budget is with the Department of Education. With all of its challenges though, mediation of the rural education policy then becomes critical in the long term. And I thank you. Thank you.
Can we once again give him a very big round of applause?
It's there.
Colleagues, we had agreed that if there are any additional inputs to be made on the work of a commission, we shall allow for that at the end of all the commissions. But can I just get an indication? Do you, in your view, accept this report? By show of hands, can I get the movers? Should we accept the report? Except for members of the commission. Okay, Ms. Wabana, were you in the commission? Are you accepting the report? Can I get a seconder? Thank you so much. Colleagues, that's also my view from the chair. I think that there is a lot of work. You see, when you are listening to a report which is presented to a summit, the question that preoccupies your mind is, what is new? What is new that this report is coming with? And I can assure you, there's a lot. There's a lot, Commission 1. Can you give yourselves a very big round of applause? Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Commission 1. Can we then call upon Commission 2? The last time I checked, you were chair. Now you are at patrol. Okay. Welcome, that's good, Dr. Mdingi, colleagues, with a round of applause. Doc, thank you so much.
Can we copy this presentation?
You can copy it and put it there.
If it's fine with you. We're trying to, the organizers asked for all the presentations.
Okay.
So,
Slideshow.
it is on a slideshow.
Each commission was allocated 8 minutes. The commission number 1 exceeded their allocation by 2 minutes. Which was not by any stretch of imagination. I'm just saying it, Doc. I'm not suggesting anything.
Sorry. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good day. All right. I think that's a very nice welcome from my DDG. When you say I'm not doing it, but actually doing it. Eh? Fine. Without further much ado, ladies and gentlemen, let me humble myself and represent Commission number 2 as we were directed. And I would curate this report exactly within the confines of those directions that were given to us as the Commission, without any deviation. And correctly, as DDG is saying, I have been playing a role of being a facilitator, as the screen shows. I am now a rapporteur. That tells you a lot then about an individual, without blowing my own trumpet, of course. Ladies and gentlemen, that's how we look like. We were assisted in scribing by the District Director, Mr. Mabekwe, and Mrs. Ngatani. And the theme, needless for me to explain it, because it's self-explanatory. So we were confining ourselves on that theme. The first thing that we had to address, ladies and gentlemen, was
setting that they want me to try and change. I do humbly apologize.
you would understand, ladies and gentlemen, it's not my fault.
Yeah, apologies.
I'm being disrupted.
I really apologize.
But I think it's a constructive disruption, eh? Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. As I was saying, this is a constructive discussion.
Sorry, good dog. Can the person who brought this announcement come and assist me? Don't want to take it was ngathethwa apha. Ikhona kodwa into elahlekileyo apha. Hayi. Ikhona into elahlekileyo bakufundiswane ngayo, colleagues. Proceed, Doc.
All right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. As I was saying that the disruption was constructive, if I may share with the House so that you are on the know, it was for live streaming purposes. Hence, I allowed it to impact my presentation. And we were looking at number one, ladies and gentlemen, which talks to stakeholder mapping and engagement. We were trying to respond to identification of key stakeholders. We were also trying to focus our endeavors on coordination of that so that the exercise in which we embark on does not become a futile exercise, but it becomes a credible exercise, all-inclusive, as guided by the policies that are in place of the Department of Education, not only in the Eastern Cape, even nationally, DBE, so to speak. We spoke there of labor unions, deliberately so, if I may delve in that space just for 1 or 2 seconds. We said, let us not be divisive in terms of approach and start talking this union, that union, and that union, but just be embracing to organized labor so that they do not come to the fore with irritation that already, perhaps we were not even in your list, so we are here by accident or because we demanded to be part of your list. So we wanted the situation to be welcoming to everybody or the environment. Further to that, the list is as it appears, ladies and gentlemen. We were saying here, there is a mistake of omitting or leaving out, not intentionally, the disability sector. The disability sector. And this is one sector that we have to make sure that in whatever we do when we identify stakeholders, we don't leave out. I'm just underscoring that one so that everyone takes note of it. Further to that, we also said, in terms of the traditional leaders, we have lived experiences wherein they would say, and this was spoken about even yesterday, to say if you want to close, to merge, whatever you want to do, even the speaker before me did point to that, to say the traditional leaders have a vested interest because it is named after his great-great-grandfather and all that. And I think the retired statistician also, Prof, spoke about that at some point. So we said it would be a huge mistake if you leave. They may frustrate all what you want to do and achieve. Ladies and gentlemen, we moved on to speak about communication and advocacy. It may sound normal and usual that we communicate, but we want to crystallize some few points in the list that you see in front of yourselves in terms of trying to enhance the way in which we communicate and make people aware about SRRP. We said imbizos perhaps may be looked down upon by some of us, and we agreed as the Commission, if that does happen, that's the biggest mistake. And we need then not to find ourselves doing that. Because this links well with what we have highlighted in the previous slide of the traditional leaders. Some other people, in what you write, in your communication, may not comprehend, but when it's put in simple terms of imbizo, everybody would develop ownership and then regard that as a sign of respect, and definitely trust will kick in that these people are not here for any foul means, but they are here for a good cause. We further said in our engagement, it will be important to utilize structures like IDP Forum, to utilize structures like IGR, to make sure that the social media space is also optimally utilized. We understand it's already there, but the question that arises is it optimally utilized or something? And the undertaking in the Commission was that we are not optimally utilizing social media, more especially at the district level. The reliance is so heavy on services, DDG, that are rendered at a provincial level. And the current arrangement, therefore, warrants us to tamper with it so that what finds expression at the level of the province also finds expression at the level of the district, because it is where, Mr. Mabona, the tire hits the tar. Because it's where you have the schools. Because to them, if you limit it to the level of the province, the stakeholders, so to speak, it will be as if you are speaking above their own heads. We further said here the community radio stations. A glitch was there, DDG Chwagati, to say, would you then wait as a district for a spokesperson of the department to go and speak there? And we said in the summit, we have to make it clear that it's not about that. But now this is a totally different phenomenon that we are dealing with. And we have to be very flexible because people have to receive the information and be ready for whatever lies ahead, whether it's realignment, measure, or closure. So if you are to straitjacket it, you might miss the point. So we said the last point, the feedback loop. This, ladies and gentlemen, seeks to avert a point where we will be doing things maliciously so. We were in a summit, we have got to do it, doing it for the sake of doing it. But when you actually measure the impact of what you have embarked on, definitely that would make a difference. And we feel this, perhaps DDG has not been observed as it dictates to us in the recent past. Now, participation and ownership. These are the key points that the Commission raised. Bilateral engagement with traditional leaders, needless for me to overemphasize that one. We also said there has to be standard approach to stakeholder engagement. And what then would serve as a compass would be the stakeholder engagement framework. Do we have that in place, for argument's sake? If the answer is yes, how best then do we make use of it? If it's non-existent, who are we waiting for not to have it then? Because still, if we don't have that kind of a stakeholder engagement framework, we would be missing the point. So it is upon this summit to make that kind of a resolution that it be there if it's not there. If it's underutilized, it be optimally utilized. Engage with learners in FET through RCLs. Remember, our children these days, ladies and gentlemen, will say, nothing about us without us. And this, if taken lightly, might present itself in what we will be talking about in the slide to come, that talks to resistance. Then that would be unwarranted, because you would have overlooked people who matter most, given this kind of a proclamation by them to say nothing about them without them. We are further saying the in-house Indaba has to kick in DDG in terms of capacity building. Do our officials at the level of the district understand the fundamentals of forging ahead with this huge responsibility? And if not, how best do we mitigate that? And the response that became crystal clear was that capacitate them. We understand when school rationalization came for the first time, CJ, there are some colleagues who are in that space who were capacitated. And the argument now that arises is that take on board the new role players who were never privileged to get that kind of a capacitation. We further say here, in terms of the schools using names of people, dare not make a mistake of overlooking those families and only focus on traditional leaders. Because one would have been a progressive leader in the society or the most enlightened person who led to the establishment of a school in that community, and the school was then named after him. So it would be a blunder to focus only on traditional leaders, not those prominent figures that would have left that kind of a footprint in the society. A pointed case is that of Atwell Madala in OR Tambo Inland. That family is hands-on in that school, donating with everything that it could, encouraging learners in every respect. So you cannot turn a blind eye to such lived realities. That's the point that we are making as the Commission. We say we can also utilize the parents' meetings in a more meaningful way. It should not be malicious. Engage with staff members to discuss conditions of service and job security. Remember, this has been, SAJ, kind of a missing link in one way or the other. This has been an unintended consequence, DDG, because we have overlooked these people, whereas they matter most. Hence, you would see organized labor at some point coming on board with guns blazing to say, these are our members. So as this summit, we need not to overlook that, because it's a lived reality. And if it is a lived reality, how best do we mitigate it so that it does not resurface and show its ugly face going forward? Resistance and conflict, as I promised this gathering, that we will talk to this as a coming slide. We have arrived to that slide. Conflict management. We are saying that there are those key challenges, resistance, so to speak. How do we encounter that? And how do we counteract that? And we need not to counteract, colleagues. Let that be put up front as the Department of Education. The reason, DDG Chwakati, would be that if we counteract, it means we are betraying our own core value, which is responsiveness as the Department of Education. We will be betraying our own core value, which is empathy. So if we keep those in mind, sharply so, definitely we'll never go wrong in our endeavors to make sure that quality learning and teaching does take place in our schools. We were saying then there is that district team that is already there. We had a feeling as the Commission that the district team that is assigned this huge responsibility of dealing with matters of rationalization, realignment, and major closure of schools is not optimally utilized, such that some committees are getting rusty in the process. And that is not right. if we want to hit the nail on the head, let's resuscitate those committees in our districts. This begins to suggest again, DDG, our way forward as steps to be taken without us pronouncing here, but if one follows how we are presenting ourselves as the Commission, it begins to give direction. Because theory without practice, I understand there's an argument that says is no theory at all, vice versa. You have to balance theory and practice so that you are able then to measure the impact that you would have made in the process. We are further saying here, DDG, as the Commission, embrace data-driven approach to eliminate any misconceptions, and we make the list. How do you gather that data? PPN funding, teaching, and learning. There has to be a high degree of planning to eliminate any possible ambiguity. Remember, I think I like you most, DDG Chokati, when you say, hey, hence we're saying possible. We may not know, but we do contemplate that there's that high possibility of such coming and confront us. And we need not then fall into that trap. Let us be proactive, not reactive. We are further saying flexibility and patience in terms of dealing with the program. The team, for example, that we have spoken to DDG, we are saying as the Commission, might go engage and do not derive any pleasure in that engagement. Does it mean we must come back with our hands on the head, crying loud and crying foul and all that and giving up? And the answer of the Commission is that no, be patient with people. Perhaps for the first time, you may not get that kind of acceptance. You may not get that kind of ownership that one would like to see. We further say, focus on national and positive spin-offs of SRRP program. Remember, if we are having one Department of Education, as many of you may remember, that many fought for one system of education in the country, and we dare not then overlook this particular step to take, because there are some good practices that can be copied elsewhere so that we benchmark ourselves, so that we emulate those good practices as the Eastern Cape Province. No judgmental in addressing the issue under contestation. We need not to judge our people. That's what the Commission is saying, and be conclusive. Remember, if we do judge without having engaged and have facts, any debate that would arise outside facts that have transpired in that engagement would be miscalculated move. Our assumption has been that, colleagues, if you venture in the space of wanting to take decisions on the basis of perceptions and presuppositions without substance and content and facts, you would not be doing the right thing. So we need not to fall into that trap on the basis of taking full advantage of being in this summit. We're saying rules of natural justice. And this talks to the point that we have spoken to already, that of not being judgmental. Both sides of the story are important to be heard in all fairness. That's the point we are making as the Commission. We said there are recommendations that we do not argue for the sake of arguing as the Commission. But what are the suggestions? Some were traceable even in the previous slides. That look, this point that is being raised here already is pointing a way forward. We are saying here, there is short term. And our short term, as we may understand, colleagues, there would be short term, medium term, and long term. We said, let us confine ourselves at least within 6 months, so that there is no lull, no lapse of time from this summit to that period of 6 months from this day. Because if we do that, colleagues, that would be undermining our very being here. Resolve for the sake of resolving. Here are the summit resolutions. But how do you action them? And any plan without timelines, colleagues, it's our firm belief that is no plan at all. And it will end up being at risk of being anybody's business. And anybody's business is no business at all. So that's the philosophy. We are saying there are the activities, activity number one, and who is involved, and what timeline, the budget's implications. Colleagues, without undermining your skill of reading, I understand in some slides that I've spoken to have been too elaborative in one way or the other. So in this one, I would not undermine your skill of reading. I trust you. You see what is entailed. And I will go to the next one. We are also here, ladies and gentlemen, continuing with that. Because we are saying here, in number 7 for argument's sake, develop and distribute the flyers as part of advocacy. And who is responsible for that? We know colleagues like Abo Metolum Sejay in your chief directorate would be there to run the show. Even at district level, there are colleagues who would help us run the show. So we are saying here radio slots. There are community radios. For example, I understand here around Kabeja, there is a radio station, I'm not sure whether in Zide or in Kwazakele. So for people to understand even the language that is used there, because some other radio stations may be using a different language, which the local people may not understand. So we are making that kind of a suggestion and saying the district team must be hands-on. And I would like to just shed some light when we talk of a district team. It has been our observation, DDG, that when you go to districts, it will only be the circuit manager's responsibility. Nobody else in the picture. And we are saying because of that lived experience, it cannot be perpetual, this kind of arrangement. Let's condemn it and correct it and do it the right way, because it has to be the team, not just the circuit manager. Otherwise, if it's just the circuit manager, our undertaking was that you will be subjecting that circuit manager to failure. Teamwork, as even Mem Arstop, when he was welcoming us here, said, if you want to go far and fast, there's a difference. Go alone if you want to go fast, but if you go with a team, you'd go far. So we cannot turn a blind eye to such lived realities, colleagues. And there are things that we have to learn, there are things that we have to unlearn in the process so that we do right. We are saying staff consultation, we spoke about earlier on. When do we speak to staff consultation? The issue of facilitation in public hearings in schools where social facilitation or public hearings has not been held. We are informed about this, DDG, that there were schools that were served with that Section 33 letters and all that. And public hearings have already been held. So we don't have to have some kind of a dubious exercise or repetition of what has already been done, but start on a new leaf and move forward. Those that have been subjected to the process would be taken on board and continue from where the team left so that we make progress. We are talking about the key critical insights from the Commission. We are saying stakeholder engagement, critical in the process. Needless for us to overemphasize. Capacity building, needless for us to overemphasize, because the slides were speaking to that, and I expatiated. Localization of school rationalization, advocacy campaign, collaborative effort in the post-closure process. Because remember, colleagues, we talk of sister departments, we talk of the local states, you name all the role players. Going solo may be unwise, but going there in a collaborative approach where everybody who's got a stake in this kind of a program definitely we would never go wrong. We are again raising the issue which has not been observed in the recent past, that of a feedback loop. Very critical. It might sound simple, normal. When I grew up, I was told that usuality gamma conquers the mind. Thinking, and knowing are two different things. Because when you have that feedback loop, you would be getting exactly what people are saying. And that begins to talk to your planning going forward. How do you brace yourself for the near future so that you don't make the same mistakes as you would have done? Some would be spontaneous, some would be self-tailored, without realizing sometimes. But how do we do away with all that? You say the feedback loop will take us where we want to be. And the Commission thanks you for being a very good address.
Another big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. The Commissioner saved us 3 minutes. So can we give them another very big round of applause? Uti, Doc, usuality, as you grew up, conquers the mind. This day, they say, culture, it's strategy for breakfast. And this is the kind of mindset that we are here coming to change. Thank you so much, Commission 2. By show of hands, does anyone accept the report from Commission 2? Nathi qedo babili DDG Chwagati nawe babona ningathi ndithi viva. Thank you so much, colleagues. Commission 2 report has been accepted. Thank you so much. Can we move, colleagues, without you want us to give them another resounding round of applause? Yes, for the approval now. Thank you so much, Commission 2, for the good work. Commission 3, you are now invited to the stage. Commission 3. Thank you so much. Please do encourage him with a round of applause, Doc. The stage is yours. Thank you.
I'm sorry about that. So? Program Director, DTG, Senior Management, and the plenary. Good afternoon. Our approach as Commission 3 was as follows. Ms. Pundwana, the facilitator, and Mr. Mchotan I was therefore given a task to report. The scribe, Ms. Makalima. Our task is infrastructure planning and provisioning. The number of commissioners, we were 26. Our approach, Chair, was as follows. One, we look at some kind of the literature that is available. For an example, UNESCO argues that by 2025, 70% of the communities will be living in urban areas. But by implication, this fact that we are presenting, or a scientific knowledge that we are presenting, is that it becomes an independent variable. As a result, we might not necessarily have a control. The only question, how do we then react in terms of that? Secondly, we listened attentively to the presentations that have been tabled in this seminar. For an example, State SA raised critical issues in terms of the status quo regarding the quality of education. One might argue to say schooling system. You could see the comparison, especially for the black communities, in terms of how they perform in terms of the critical subject. But basically, we all agree with State A to say, in terms of the small schools, probably there is no schooling. I'm just lacking of a word to say what is actually happening there. The second last, we will listen attentively to OTP. No. I'm doing an introduction. No, I'm sorry about that. I'm saying the approach of the commission. Yes. The second last, before I get to the presentation, we look at we listened at the presentation by OTP to say that we need to be very conscious as we are dealing with the project, especially when we are looking at rural wards. The last one, the stakeholders, if I might mention one, maybe SADTU, they were critical in terms of looking at the retrenchment of posts in the process. So our task was therefore to reconcile these contradictions as we present, to say how do we therefore answer this question in terms of the task that is at hand. These were the issues and the guidance that we received in terms of the commission. One, overcrowding in schools emanating from over-enrollment of learners by schools. Lack of collaboration between clients' departments, especially your public works, human civic settlement, COCTA, State SA, transport and others, to inform the rationalization process and to encourage integration. Delays in the implementation of projects resulting in migration of communities driven by various push and pull factors. You know, as we delay to implement projects, you find that when we have approved a project, when we implement that project, that community has already left. Misaligned communication plans resulting in poor visibility of district officials at various construction sites and project meetings. It is common that the district will only discover after 3 months that there is a construction that is happening elsewhere. in his or her district. Poor advocacy and management of monitoring and evaluation tools, such as education facilities management system, which is commonly known as EFMS, EMIS, to inform rationalization and realignment needs. Minimum utilization of existing resources like GIS specialists, town planners, and the district development model. The second issue that has been raised, planning and coordination. These are the key points that have been raised. Misalignment of a second school landscaping plans with infrastructure plan. Data remains outdated. Remember, when were these CSLPs were developed and signed? When have they been reviewed again to talk to the realities? Minimal utilization and advancement of tools at the department's disposal, like MS data correctness. You'll find that there is a school in the MS that has not yet been removed, but the school has been closed 6 months. Updated EFMS and updated SRRP. Poor stakeholder engagement, lack of interdepartmental integration plans in terms of MS and other programs. Poor communications plans, limited visibility of ECDOE personnel in IDPs and IGR, misalignment of municipalities and relevant stakeholders for planning purposes. The second last, before I sit down, funding and resource allocation. The question is very clear. Are budget sufficient? Any delays or insufficiencies? The key points that have been raised. One, frequency of reviews of district development models, or P5. You know, we are saying this issue of not reviewing frequently the B5 is a problem. Another issue that we have seen as an elephant in the room, over-allocation of projects on the B5, resulting in over-commitment against the available budget. At a later stage, when we are supposed to pay, we don't pay. Lack of SOP, that is standard operation procedure, to guide prioritization of projects for the implementation, versus the demand by members, honorable members, who, when they visited the district, they would say, please build this school against what has been prioritized by DF or the stakeholders. The non-existence of equitable share. Limiting conditions of the education infrastructure grant framework. Remember, the grant have got its own framework to say how to utilize the grant. Overcrowding needs, including ad hoc projects, result into overcommitment of projects in the P5. Lack of physical resource management, PRM resources in terms of organogram, especially at the district level. If colleagues, you could remember, I think during the time of Honorable Makupul, when there was an argument regarding the monies that were taken back, in the department we did not have officials in terms of PRM. It's a new phenomenon now that we have got our own insight now in the department. We are saying that therefore it's beginning to show that we don't have them at the district level. Low number of allocation of control work inspectors in the grant framework. Lack of establishment of district reporting meetings with the implementing agents at the district level. Limited reviews of implementing agents' capacity versus budget allocation. You find that the implementing agent will be given a bulk in terms of what is supposed to do as against its capacity. The last issue that has been raised, the major obstacles and the lessons learned from the project. These are the key points that have been raised. limiting government's regulations and policies, lengthy procurement processes, poor collaboration between districts and district stakeholders, poor monitoring and management of implementing agents emanating from the lack of capacity within the unit, limited infrastructure capacity at the district level, budget shortages to address backlogs, delays in payment of invoices to service emanating from the budget shortfalls, cost overrun of projects emanating from delayed payments. As a result, a project that would have been 70 million, it overruns only to find that when we finally pay, we pay 139 million. Recommendations. In terms of the short-term actions, what we need to do, we've got short-term, medium-term, and the long-term. In terms of the short-term, the commissioners resolve or propose as follows. 1, resuscitation of district infrastructure reporting meetings with the implementing agents at the districts. Engagement of Statistics SA, South African Weather Services for planning purposes. Integration of interdepartmental units, our MS Finance, PRM, and other units that are dealing with hostel as well, for a collaborated management approach. Periodic reviews of B5, continuous review of service delivery agreements with the implementing agents to align them with the rationalization needs. Establishment of contractor building programs for provisioning of SME support. Capacitated control works inspectors at the district level. Establishment of monthly meetings with the Department of Public Works at the district level. The medium framework. Here we are arguing as commissioners that we need to establish physical resource management unit at the district level and decentralization of the budget. Strengthening of the district education forum and communication plans at the district level. Strengthening of the stakeholder engagement by integrating with sister departments, your human resource, your human settlements, treasury, and others. Updating and advancement of second landscape plans so that they talk to the current reality. The last one, in terms of the long-term plan, that is, we've put 24 months and beyond. Allocation of projects according to available budget. Our argument was very strong. To say it's of no use to allocate 1,000 projects, but in terms of your capacity, you can only pay 20. We'll say let's allocate the budget a project according to available budget. Reviewal on standardization of construction material to be used in the education infrastructure space. We have discovered that we found that some implementing agent will approve very expensive material and becomes costly for us as a department. Review of construction regulations. Review of supply chain policies for procurement of service providers for small projects. We are advancing it that we might need to develop the Mesilane program to disturb the status quo. Remember, currently, we only use tender system for everything. As a result, something that would have built, a structure that could be built at 20 million, it becomes 120 million. Approval. We have seen other commissioners raising the issue of the rural education policy. We will be advised, but our position is that it is still a draft. We argue strong that the approval of education, rural education policy, to ameliorate the negative impact of rationalization in rural communities, so that as we rationalize, we don't close schooling at all in rural committees. This is the policy that we believe so strongly as the commissioners that it will assist us if it finally gets approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Commission 3. With everything that they did. First addressing us without reading on a... but still getting into the presentation, which is so detailed. Still, they managed to save us 12 minutes. So can we give them a very big round of applause? You see, if you are dealing with a presentation which has started on that high academic note, you must be very careful. So that ungaphazamisani nogqirha in their doctored input. So can I just get a sense, colleagues, what's your feeling about this presentation? Are we accepting this report? Is it a well-doctored? Is that what we're looking for? Well-doctored. Thank you so much. Give them a very big round of applause. I also happened to have some few minutes in that commission, and I could really, as I was listening, see that there is something good that's going to be coming up. And colleagues, I think I cannot but emphasize the important point that each of these recommendations, Doc, okay. Okay, there's the mic, Doc.
One is afraid of being part of the undertaking of this very important gathering that accepts a commission's report with a connotation that says doctored. Because doctored in the true meaning means the content has been twisted to falsify.
That's another doctoring. That is another doctor. Doctoring the acceptance. Your acceptance has been doctored, colleagues. Okay, colleagues, I'm saying that, look, this process is meant to shake up the operations of the entire department. How I wish that we take note of the issues, all the new proposals. Some may not necessarily be new, that are actually coming up. And I think that for infrastructure, sure, if we cannot take seriously, because it says, just go back to the drawing board. That's what it actually says. There's nothing wrong that you've been doing, but there is more that we still need to do to improve our operation. Thank you so much. Last round of applause for Commission 3, as we now invite Commission 2. Commission 4, I'm sorry. Commission 4. Chawela Machawe, as we encourage you with a round of applause. That's Mr. Komble. Thank you so much, Muti.
Thank you, Chairperson or Program Director. Good afternoon, colleagues and guests that are amongst us. In the meantime, let me palaver. I guess, colleagues, let me pause it and say that it may take us the hammer and the anvil to squash and crush the issue of, or the quandary of school rationalization. The matter that is at hand, we want to achieve epistemic liberation. Hence, we're talking about here educators. Where are they? Where were they? Where have they been? Where are they taken to? As this Commission 4 and commissioners, we are looking at a very critical area in the system, which is bringing the life of the system at large. Now, educators that were in schools that were closed or merged, where are they? Where are these educators? Because we want them so that they can be gainfully employed and use them optimally as a system. Now, without them, our epistemic liberation will be not attained because they are not there. Now, let me just say that as per the end of August, which is this August just has ended, we had 277 of them who we could not match with the PPN. What it means is that they are not where they are supposed to be in the system. We are not sure whether they are gainfully employed or they are not. Now, what it means is that, but we are paying them every month a salary over a year, 157 million rands we are paying them. It's a lot of money that we are paying them. Now, what it means is that our system and our warm bodies, they don't talk to each other as it is. Now, what it does then, that in essence, as people are moved from point A to point B, that disrupt our teaching. But what we are saying is that as a commission, we must identify early who will move and to where will this person move, so that we can ensure that we're doing what is called post-matching in the system. I said we want to attain epistemic liberation. Without them, that will be not attained. Also, having done that, we must always make sure that we are compliant with the laws of the country. We cannot do things outside the law, especially on Liberation Act. It is very important that we have to make sure that that does happen. But it becomes easier if we can be able to do what is called skills matching. However, we are dealing here with human beings with emotions. Therefore, there must be a process that these people, they undergo so that we can be able not to find them at St. Mark's Hospital, etc., because of the pillars that are there. We must be able to give them what is called guidance as a department. Now, but there were gaps. There are gaps. Still, they are there even now in the system. One, we don't do skills audit in the department. We don't know who teaches what where. Such that when we do redeployment, we are found wanting at times because we may want to place somebody in a wrong post and people are not really redeployable at times. Because where we have posts, they don't match those profiles at times. Therefore, we're saying, let's ensure that whenever schools are being closed or to be closed, let's do what is called PPN profiling. We profile these educators to know what are they offering, so that whenever we close those schools, we can find fit posts for them. Then we deploy them. Another issue is issue of language. Now, the language is an issue that is emotive issue, because if you take Ukomle, who is Mna, to a Sotho-speaking area, I may be found wanting in that area. It means those areas, those issues are very critical. Therefore, also that is a problem that we need to look at. Having said that, let's ensure that people are trained, are given capacity so that they understand that they are moving to certain areas, therefore they understand. But on the main, we want to ensure that our classrooms that we have are manageable. Remember, our aim, again, is epistemic liberation. We want to have learners who can think critically, creatively. Therefore, they must have meaningful learning. Therefore, they depend on our teachers that we have. And lastly, whatever we do as a system, let's monitor and evaluate. Let's have a dipstick to understand what are the challenges, where do we make corrections. We don't do that, we will be at our own peril. Furniture in our schools, equipment, LTSM, what happens to those? Now, what the issue that is there is that now schools that have those furniture or LTSM, they must have been somewhere somehow recorded. Now, however, now some schools they don't do that, and we don't know how much do they have of that. Now it means we are saying that there must be inventory in those schools so that we can know that this school is being closed now. It has so many textbooks of this and that, and therefore when we transfer to another school, we understand that this number, it was there, it has been moved to another school. Now also the issue of procurement of books and also LTSM must be done in a proper manner so that everything is done quite correctly. But that is dependent on proper planning by the district as well as the school, that these things they happen in a proper manner. Now the issue of furniture. Now if it's the furniture, remember it's going to move from school A if it's close to school B. Again, we know it is in the register, but it must how many learners are moving? Because we're saying here, resources must follow learners. Now it means if learners move from point A to point B, they must follow by the resources that are there. However, we say that district asset management team must make sure that everything is done quite correctly and on time. And also, if there are any shortages, must be identified, and so that we cannot have any negative effects ultimately. So that learning and teaching can always continue with our learners. Now what we see here as the risks, because whatever is being done, you must always try to make sure that you mitigate the risks that are there. The first one is we know that in some schools our registers are not complete for our assets. Secondly, in some areas, furniture becomes we lose it, or it becomes misallocated, or sometimes it is stolen when schools are closed. But we're saying now the first thing to be sure that everything you know where it is, you must have full inventory of your furniture. You must know what you have. We're saying that when we transfer stuff, you must sign it off. It is transferred to school A to school B so that it is not misallocated. So whenever you need it, you know where it is. And also we're saying if schools are being closed, to prevent theft, please, we must ensure that we secure the buildings. We can have also a company that we can appoint so that they can be able to assist us in terms of security of those buildings. Now, we're saying now the issue of funds. Now, the funds, sometimes there's a failure from our side to close schools properly. Such that if that happens we continue, the funds continue to go to those schools. Secondly, we say that when funds are not spent and the school is being closed, now we find that those funds are misappropriated at a certain stage. And therefore, it means that there is non-compliance in line with the PFMA that is there, as well as the SASA about that issue. And lastly, there is weak accountability that is coming from districts. Now, again, these issues are very important that we need to look at, because these are the risks, and therefore we say what should be done as we move forward. But now the main thing is that our school principals, our SGP chairs, our district finance managers are very key. That these we can arrest this before they become big sort of problems. Also, in terms of our funds operation, our CFO also could be part of that. DDG is also part of that. But the main thing is that these risks, we must make sure that we nip them in the bud before they become our albatross on our necks. Now, another issue that we are saying here is that we've got our internal audit. It is not really up to scratch. Not when. I'm talking about internal audit of these issues. Another issue is how we delay to redirect the funds to receiving schools. School A has been closed, learners have moved to school B, but the funds still go to school A, not to school B. We delay to do that. And also, if we do that, the public, there will be risk of that our reputation is a stake here, but people don't trust that we're doing the right things ultimately. But we're saying that in terms of our school, we must ensure that we have internal audit in our schools to understand that schools are being merged, schools are being closed. Also, ensure that we publish closures and measures so that people understand that those finances, they go to the relevant schools. They don't remain where we are at. Because if we're doing the same thing, we don't change, we won't find better results. One of the well-decorated scientists, Albert Einstein of relativity, once said, if you do the same thing time and again and expect different results, that is called insanity. We don't want to go there. Now, in terms of not then closing the school appropriately, now it means that we are going to pay municipality services, but the school has been closed. That is called wasteful expenditure, because we don't use those services. It means now what we need to do, even if we had contracts with our service providers, we must, before we close the school, pre-closure, we must talk to them that guys who are closing the school, therefore we no longer need the services, so that they don't bill us while the schools are not operational. And also, in terms of that, we need to ensure that there's safety operational risks that are there during disconnection. Now, because school may have electricity, we disconnect that in the school, but ensure that everything is done in a safety environment. We don't want to get people to governance here. Governance, it plays a very big role. Because we're saying here that pre-closure processes must take place. Now, we don't close school abruptly. We need people who understand, and SGP of those merged schools, if they have merged, they must meet, and therefore remember, there is a new school now, and have a new SGP, and those old ones, they fall by the wayside, and therefore they are disbanded. Now, the district HR, your SCM and the ITDF must be in charge of that administration of that merged school that are merged. Now, the governance here is from the school level to your district to the province, and therefore also go outside that oversight. Now, remember, now the school, at the school level, now you've got in the school your teachers, your principals, your teachers, and then your learners. Now, I was saying in the study that, remember, if schools merge, they form one school. Now, that school is a new school with no principal. There were two principals coming in this school. Now, there are no more principals. The post must be advertised, and they will apply for that post. They must know that. They must understand that. If my school becomes the whole school of the merger, I don't become a principal because this is my school. Not at all. The law is clear that this is a new post. It must be advertised. Therefore, that must be clearly defined. Now, even now, in terms of deploying employees in that school. Now, remember, I said initially that we must do PPN profiling of post. Now, as these teachers that are coming to this school because of the measure, some teachers here, we may not really need them because of their profile of the post and what is offered in the school. Therefore, they must understand how do we go about the issue of placing them in the schools. We don't say, this was my school. No. Even those who were in this school as you're coming in may be additional because what they're offering might not be what the school really needs, of the curricular needs of the school. That is important. Now the province, from your HOT, your DDGs, your CFO, etc., they must ensure that they do provide oversight on that. And then we know that now your treasury will do the same, your MEC and portfolio committee will do that, so that things are happening within the law. We don't push anything, things are done appropriately and correctly. We are just there. That is very important from our side. Now, but what we're saying, recommending now here, now it is important that our SOPs for school closure and measure must be updated. Seemingly, they are there, but seemingly they are a step behind to what they should be. Therefore, we need to them updated, our SOPs. It is important that there must be provincial workshops in districts so that people can maybe understand things that how they should be done. In terms of transition of assets, there must be for that a register. And we're saying that there must be a template that is given out so that we can have uniformity here. I always say this thing, that KFC in Sentin and KFC and Bizana has the same taste and the same feel. It's a franchise. Similarly, what you do in any district head office must be the same because we are the same department. We can't have different templates. One template must go out so that the people can understand and be accustomed to using the same template. And therefore, we also ensure that we implement transaction registers. They are done by the district, and therefore we do also financial verifications because it's important that if schools are closed, now there was money coming to that school, how much money is left in the bank of the school? Where will the money go to where the learners are going? Remember, resources should follow learners. They cannot stay where the school that is closed, but learners are going to school B. That must happen. And therefore, CFO or finance branch may just develop a dashboard. A dashboard is important, colleagues, chairperson and colleagues, that you can at any point in time know what is happening, how is it happening, why it's not happening, and be able to ask questions so that they can be able to monitor things as they happen in real time. In real time. Spot checks are important for risk management and M&E. Also, we ensure that treasury engagement is streamlined and redirected so that things are happening on time. Now, AFS of schools must always be out there and be able to analyze them and see what happens, and also can be able to redirect the funds where they are needed. However, for new principals in the new schools, we have to have a refresher course for them or training for them so that they can understand compliance issues in terms of finances and otherwise. Now, in terms of moving from now onwards, we need to review how our implementation, because we know that we have done this program for some time, and there are challenges that are there. Let's review and see how then can you change things as moving forward. And I said update SOPs and registers and strengthen consequence management protocols for non-compliance. That is very important because things they do get lost between the cracks because they know that nothing is going to happen after that. And also we need to say that let's also have a second workshop that is conducted that is going to focus on risk areas that have been identified. We know what are the challenges, your asset transfers, liabilities, focus on those, have a workshop on those, and therefore ultimately have a mid-term audit review of your audit funds. Because it's important that whatever you do, always move forward and check what is still lagging behind. You're talking about monitoring. As you're moving forward, you monitor. And therefore, in that way, you ensure 100% compliance on your funds within the 30 days LSA and report progress to Provincial Treasury, because they always talk about this 30 days turnaround time. Then we say consolidating of 2-year performance reporting to school measures and closures. Ensure that we are compliant to all reports and they are updated. And maybe to ensure that we abide by the PFMA Act. And lastly, also, we ensure that internal audit reforms are out there and people understand them and resolve all unresolved findings and ensure that maybe you are able to escalate them to the relevant personnel, which is now our chief audit executive in the department, just in front of me now. In terms of this, in terms of the measures, we say that now we have to have a 3-year review of financial management in this. It's important, and then lesson learned from those are tabled to the EXCO and PC of Education, and also update for the next MTF, our 2028-2030 MTF cycle, and that things don't happen the same way again. Importantly, now we are saying the main key findings that we have here, there are 5 or 6 of them. 1, let's adhere and implement illegal prescripts appropriately. Our SASA, police, our Bella Act and frameworks of rationalization must be correctly adhered to and implemented by the department, so that there are no comebacks ultimately. Now we're saying here that let's form and resuscitate a functional provincial and district teams for realignment and rationalization, so that we ensure that our processes are done correctly and are in line with our prescripts, and also develop a management plan for that, so that everything that we do in the province and the district, so that we can follow. Remember, the provincial one takes precedence, and then the district one follows up, and then we do that as we move forward. Now, verify all assets and audit them. Verify that they are there and audit assets that are in these schools, so that we know what we have. I'm saying this thing because, we're saying this thing as a commission because in some villages, if you go to a funeral, you see, hey, this is Toulouse. It's orange, yes? I was born in Toulouse, orange, but Nyan Sasalal. Let's call it, no, now, I'm going to I'm saying, let's verify and audit assets so that we can send them to where they are needed. Either we direct them where they are needed to schools, or we redistribute them across the schools that they are in need of this. We are saying here, we need to review Section 21 status of schools that are there for closure. If schools is going to be closed, let's review status so that imali is.
When you made a comment, when you made a comment on internal audit, I became a little bit worried because the department has just appointed here a new audit chief executive. And it also reminded me in 2017 or 2018, we appoint here a district director around November, December, in one of our districts, OR Tambo Coastal District. Then in January, February of the following year, DBE writes to us to say that they are sending a mentor in that district where a new district director was appointed. And that district director happened to be Mr. Joseph. At the time, I was the cluster chief director. Now I saw Mr. Joseph coming one morning to my office to say, "But what is this nonsense? Why did you appoint me if you felt that I was inadequate? That right on my appointment, you are giving me a mentor. What is this person going to do here?" So I was a little bit worried, but then he corrected it later to say, "We really appreciate and very happy and excited that we now have someone in your caliber in that space." Colleagues, Commission 4 has done very well. They have done, can you give them a very big round of applause? Now we are not going to doctor it. Can we then get an indication whether we accept the report or not? The report is accepted. Can we give them a very big round of applause? Kosi Chawe for the new insights. Siyabulela. Can we, colleagues, then move to Commission number 5? Did I see your name there? Please welcome Mr. Plata Unodzaba on stage. Batan, good.
Good morning, DDG, Chairperson. Let me start by saying, Mr. Mfenyana, I'm one of those children that made our schools to be full after 1976 strike in Soweto. And I'm now, so, but for me, I didn't go back, which resulted in our small schools, because after we attained our freedom, learners went back to their respective provinces. So now we left with a few learners that now need to be rationalized. Let me say again that inzima ke lento yoba utywala buphekwe komnye umzi kuselwe komnye umzi. Kuba ngoku sinelo challenge as the department, because we have our budget that is sitting with UDOT, and again our food is being cooked somewhere and be dished for us. So we need to acknowledge that UDOT didn't make it to this summit. And we tried by all means with Chief Director and Mr. Mfenyana, but it didn't go well. We are presenting, colleagues, e-scholar transport program. It's a very sensitive matter, colleagues, because our learners are not ferried fully in our respective schools. And as such, our learners do not receive proper education. And our learners are absent from school and are dropping out from schools. Because as the department, our casualties for education are in the street. That's the one that are the Maparas. Let me go straight to the slide 1. Our learner transport needs being met. So we've got those 2 sets. And now, even the first set that is approved, that 119, not all the learners that are being ferried. It is to have done a consultation. And we did upload the data of the schools that are targeted for rationalization to the approved. And that are supposed to be hanging fruit for the department with the assistance of our senior management, so that we can say, DOT, we have got these approved learners, which we believe that are budgeted for. Can they be ferried? And that is there in small schools, most of them. But that hasn't happened. The Department of Transport is using database provided the previous years without accommodating the new intake. Every year, at the end of the year, around about November, the department will be requested to cut the data in terms of to remove those Mr. Mabona's children that have passed matric without aiding others. And now, when the schools open in the new term, only few learners will be ferried, less number than the number that has been ferried in the previous year. Maybe, Vijay, we need also to look at our emis. Because, remember, Transport wanted data that is from emis. And now, when we take those grade 7 and grade 12 learners around about November, in order for the schools to upload other learners or to replace those learners, they need a window from emis. emis from time to time opens a window where they say schools must upload, whether it's results or whatever. But emis is not always open for capturing or uploading of data. And again, I'm sure we need to graduate TTG in terms of, because emis, when we started this scholar transport uploading to SSAMs, emis or SSAMs alluded to the fact that they are new in this thing of collecting data. They need to make sure that maybe they've got a certain approach or a certain system that can be easily be utilized by schools. Some schools' access road require immediate attention. Are rural remote learners adequately catered for? No. The taxis, when they pick up learners at times because of bad roads, there is a pickup point, and the pickup point is in the contract of the taxi operator. However, a taxi will not reach the actual pickup point because of the bad road. Sometimes because they are naughty. They want to keep their vehicles intact. At times, they will caught them using bakkies, which is against the law. So rural learners are suffering in that effect. And they have to travel some distances to the pickup point, to where the taxi is, leaving the pickup point where the taxi is supposed to be. The service providers have complained about infrastructure on roads. I'm sure we need to engage HR and look at a ETC development model to come on board to fix the problem. Schools with 50 learners also require transport services, but roads are bad. And at times in the district, there are fights in the schools, and that resulted in the delay of learners reaching schools. Service provision. What challenges exist in the current contracts? Department of Transport are the ones that are responsible for service providers, as the Department of Education does not have any say. For us, we submit data to UDOT. And at times, it was a pain when we realized that UDOT is saying, when the data arrived in their system, they take out the learners. They want only the numbers. So Tina, we submit the souls, but now they want to ferry the numbers. So they talk about numbers. They say they don't even to look at the names. They they hide whatever and concentrate on the numbers only. Transparency between the Department of Education and the Department of Transport concerning the conducting of service providers prior the reopening of schools. That is crucial. Tina, as a department, even at the head office, you only know that the contract, the school has been given, it says provider, from the principal of the school. Even the district doesn't know. And the principal will only know that when the service provider come to the school and report and say, I'm appointed to ferry your learners. Otherwise, all the contracting were not involved. New learners, when it comes to the upcoming academic year, they say, I have already indicated on that one. Learner drop out due to lack of scholar transport, especially in the rural areas. It's worse with the farms. Farm school learners, where they have to travel distances. So if there's no transport, there's no school. And they will also miss the meal, which is not always there at home. By nutrition. So it means they miss education, they miss something that goes to the stomach. DOT could not transport learners as was promised. Parents took upon themselves to organize transport for learners. Currently, due to provincial school transport, that is not provided. So parents, they are paying a lot of money. Some, they say, there's a message that I got from one of the school in Cape Kamog that say, the children, the learners from Kokwane, Mr. Plata, are not ferried yet. Parents are paying. And the parents will pay even for the bike for that matter. And that put our learners at risk. The data DOT uses doesn't correspond with the one sent to schools, as we indicated that DOT tended to use the data of the previous year. High school learners are prioritized to access services as against the primary school learners. That one is painful. Colleagues, you know for the fact that when the school nutrition was introduced in schools, it was introduced in primary schools. And you could have these two learners in a family. One is in primary, one is in high school. They don't have food to school, and the one that is at primary will receive something at school. The one at high school won't receive anything. It's a fact, colleagues. Now, we've got learners we've got 47 learners that are on court order, that is on pending, and not ferried. We have got this 19 learners that were believed that are being ferried. But there should be a learner that, in the same family, a learner that is in the court order, pending, and the learner that is being transported. And VJ, when they reach a pickup point, the taxi operator will pick the one that is approved. And the one, what will happen to another one? So it's not a nice thing to see. How reliable, safe, or sustainable are the services? UTOT has not met the expected standard. Serious concern of service by the Department of Transport. EU Department of Transport cannot provide us with any information, whether we need it as a district or even as a head office. We hardly get information that we need. Because we will say in the beginning of the year, DOT, can you tell us, we understand that you are contracting, can you tell us now the service provider that were conducted in our schools or in my district? They will say, no, that information cannot be shared. And now you don't know. You see? And because we want to know the letters that are being ferried in black and white or in green Excel document for that matter. There's a complaint that learners are being bullied by others, especially those who remain for extra classes. We know that this cohort of learners that are being ferried, there are those that need extra classes, need to remain at school. It's either for remedial purposes, because remember that we need to do remediation as teachers. Kumdana, that cannot progress well to the next grade, so we need to do remedial. So those who need to remain with the teacher cannot be assisted because the transport on Iaham. Community transport, hostel accommodation, and other models. As much as we can talk about the hostels, some parents do not afford the hostels, and some hostels also need scholar transport. Because what we did in Amatola West, we closed Smith Kral Farm School and took the learners to Fort Beaufort Primary. Fort Beaufort Primary is in town, but Fort Beaufort Primary cannot cater for those learners that are from farm schools. We must take them to our so-called schools, né? Because Fort Beaufort Primary is a former modern schools. So these learners, whilst they are in the hostel at Fort Beaufort Primary, they need to be transported to one of the township schools on a daily basis. So at times, we cannot run away from scholar transport, although the learners are in the hostels. And again, at times, if we are taking them from rural areas, you need to take them back during maybe out weekend. They need to go back. Multitask team need to be formed to deal with the matters relating to scholar transport. As a challenge was that other hostels are closing on Fridays and are demanding parents to come and fetch them. Is the Department of Transport adequately resourced to manage this task? The absence of DOT limited the Commission to respond. DOE raised a need for quality assurance of numbers ferried versus money paid to the taxis. So we don't want to comment much about DOT, about their resources, because they are not here. We need interdepartmental collaboration with DOT, Treasurer, DOE, municipality, to meet and iron all the matters that hinder the smooth operations. IGR and DDM to rope in municipality to maintain roads. The last slide, short-term actions. Learners that are ferried to date as per DOT is over 119,000 with 49,000 pending. What we are saying now, we need to check in that 119 whether are there any schools that have got enrollment under 50 that are not yet ferried, and make a consultation with the DOT so that they can ferry those learners. And it was suggested by the commissioners that the Office of the Premier must try to coordinate the two departments to review transport policy and MOU for proper planning, implementation, and monitoring. In that, the existing scholar transport policy, when I look at it, there are 14 challenges that are listed there within the policy. Then you find that, I hear you. 14 challenges are listed there. Then where can you begin now and implement that policy? That's the policy, scholar transport policy. Other sister departments like Treasurer be grouped in as in duty in operating in any way in even district. Hostel accommodation should be prioritized for the feeder areas. So the issue of the hostel is coming to the picture as an alternative. We know for the fact that we need to make sure that we have a human resource in our hostels. We do have hostels. We need to have to make it data analysis of our hostels in terms of the space and how many learners that are being accommodated there and what is available space, so that we can think of which schools that can accommodate in those hostels. But sadly, we have got few hostels that are primary schools. Yet, most of the schools that are targeted for rationalizations are primary schools. There's the reintroduction of Shofagalula bicycles. There was the bicycles for shorter distances, less than 5 kilometers, that were introduced. But they has now been stopped. There were walking bus. Walking bus is an unemployed youth within the community who can just accompany the learners, assist them to cross the road to that school. And then late after school, he'll go and take them back. The thing that we can have. Establish a tax team to evaluate the need of hostels as well as transport service, and also benchmark on the other provinces. Adequate maintenance of racialized or closed schools for repurposing so that we can accommodate learners for the hostels. I thank you, Chair.
Can we give them a round of applause? Thank you so much, Commission 5. Acceptance of the report, colleagues. It's a very difficult subject. I've got a mover and a seconder. Thank you so much. Give them a round of applause. Nkosi kakhulu Mbathana. Siqhuba kakuhle. We're now left with 2 commissions. Commission number 6. The floor is yours. Thank you so much. Can you give Mr. Pai a big round of applause? Thanks for the show.
Okwalomzuzu safakwe izinto yandisa ndikhulele emzini kungasilwayo kuwo, kodwa ke utyola bebakhona besilwa komnye umzi next door uzoselelwa apha ekhaya. So I'm not sure ke how realistic it is to say hayi utyola bunawusilwa elsewhere buselelwe komnye umzi. Ibisenzeka ke loo nto. Okwesibini, the first time I met with upinango kulo mfana uMaduna wayengitishara ngapha eWhittlesea. They had repurposed isikolo sabo into a technical school. Could decline in numbers efuna utitshala we-maths. Kodwa I think that project failed because no research was done about the feasibility of that project. Critica so that as an RPL to qualify as an educator, because ana profession engutishara mhlambe that khade bikanqitsa loo nto ndikhe ndiyoba ngutitshala no-principal at some stage. Hayi bendisenza nje. Colleagues, our commission mandate was the issue of the management and repurposing of closed schools into community institutions that add value into the communities that they serve. What really underpinned that from where we were is we considered the issue of the key issues were determine the number of closed schools, conduct assessment of the property and maintain accurate register of immovable assets, identification of risk and recommendation, as well as the maintenance and security of that. The important thing about determining the number of closed schools, I was sitting behind Upawa Mandlakas Nonkas. We were talking about the numbers of the schools as were presented by the DTG. I was asking how many are contained in the official plans. She had her own figures and Mr. Mchita had their thing. So the issue of actual confirming and determining the actual numbers always be a problem. I think also my predecessor in this platform also talked about the issue of the numbers as well. We then have to find a way of how do we then look at the challenges or problematize the assignment that we're looking at, acknowledging that there are quite a now numerous number of schools that have been closed in the province owing to a number of reasons, one, declining learner numbers, migration patterns, your rationalization processes as things that led to some of these closures. But the issue has been that once these schools are closed, is that you then face challenges of schools that remain vacant for quite some time, some are underutilized or vulnerable to vandalism, illegal occupation, and in some instances, assets being stripped. But the major thing is that we do not necessarily have a management framework to guide the processes, and as a result, it results to wastage in that some of these issues, for example, we're talking about how best the Nelson Mandela have managed the issue of school rationalization. I remember when at Juta, in New Brighton, there was a primary school called Masangwana, Yavalwa, but you can't even see a brick, and you're looking at where the school was strategically located, the value of the property in the township, had it been converted to something of use. So the issue is that we do have social examples of what has happened. So there is a need to look at developing a management framework that will respond to ensure that is at least the institutions are transformed to usable functions for the communities that they are supposed to serve. We looked at the guiding management framework of this particular process, how you're going to go about. First, some of the schools, we're dealing with schools for ourselves that have already been closed. But one thing that we need to do is that sometimes we adopt, the reason that we lose so many cases is that not necessarily that the decisions that are made are wrong, but it's just that we always adopt unintentionally this phenomenon of the ends justifying the means. And unfortunately in the court you lose that. So it's so important that we ensure that we strictly adhere to the legislation, particularly the guiding sections within SASA, your section 33 in terms of the process. Equally, we're saying also there are organic closures, but even despite that you may have organic closures, but you still need to follow up the formal process as guided by that. You also ensure that is who owns the property, because some of the schools are PSOPPs, others are government properties, so you're then going to be guided by the GIAMA in dealing with that. The issue of security of the assets and also updating of the relevant registers, guided by the laws, and also how you dispose those assets, and to a large extent also be guided by standard operation procedure that we have as a department. I've mentioned the issue ka Tatumbane, yes, we will see the issue of a feasibility study is necessary to underpin whatever we say we're going to repurpose. We have had both the SG talking about the existence of a social data in terms of what each area, things that you can look at, as well as the OTP. They did talk about this issue. Above all, you also need to do a technical due diligence. Our tendency is to fall victim to a tick box syndrome without necessarily looking what is it that we're supposed to do. So we need to avoid that. We need also to ensure that there's a strategy to guard against vandalism and illegal operation or occupation of those facilities. In the process, I think so many, a multitude of presenters yesterday talk about the need of a collaboration of the local municipalities, traditional leaders, the office of the premier with a view of having a social compact with all the people that are involved in our program to repurpose the schools. At the end of the day, the OTP guide did emphasize that at some stage we did go to the EXCO and presented our plan to rationalize schools, but we never came back to that. So in the process for us, if we need a buy-in, because if you're looking at the number of schools that Mr. Mchita presented yesterday as needing closure or rationalization, it's not an issue that we can go proudly as the Department of Education, and also looking at the timing process that if anything goes wrong, it might be one of the topical issues during the campaigns for local municipalities. So we need to be careful, ensure that the cabinet is updated on this process, and we explain thoroughly what is it that we're talking about. We need as well a communication strategy to underpin whatever that we're doing so that this does not fall misinterpretation. You could listen to some of the presenters yesterday. Probably the issue was like we have already taken decisions and all this. How much more if it happens within the leadership that's here to outside this environment that we are in. We also identified a risk, which we took it from our program statement, theft and vandalism of these schools once they are closed, and also a potential of illegal occupation, impact on investment in terms of what we lose as a result of the investment that we have put in, because we're not only talking about mass structures. Some of the schools are just recently built or are city schools with their well-built big environment. It's also affected, so we need to, and also looking at the issues of retaining value, because if they are not cared for, they will also depreciate. How we maintain clean and security, maintenance and cleaning and security, and also looking at, though it was not necessarily a byproduct, the issue of closing municipal accounts and bank accounts. The unemployment rate is not necessarily our thing, but it's part of the causal effect of theft and vandalism. There was also an indication that it takes very much long process to actually hand over the process as closed buildings to a Department of Public Works. So we needed to also ensure that we're looking at that. Looking at the current status, the question was how many buildings are vacant, underutilized, and repurposed. Yes, we are conscious that the DG did present statistics in terms of what is planned, but in terms of what currently has been closed, it's not something that we really have. But the issue was that we need to ensure that we verify the figures that have been given and get a confirmation. We also need to ensure that each district of these schools closes organically. And as they were presenting even last week, some districts did indicate that in the list that they have, some are already closed. So we need to reaffirm those numbers that we have. Even in terms of underutilized, I know if you're looking at Tambo Coastal, there's a number around your Libote area, there's a number of city schools that are not optimally utilized. So, but the issue is to get that information from district in terms of the number of schools as well as the list, the actual names of the schools that are affected. Because if you're talking about underutilized, you're not only limiting to your schools with learners under 50, but we're talking about a number of schools as well. We also need to do assessment of existing infrastructure in each school, because some of them we may not necessarily do anything because they are community built mud structures, for instance, or Frank Zibi figure shacks, so there's nothing that you can retain if you decide to close the Frank Zibi. So all that you can do, can access to demolishes or shacks. In some instances, you've got valuable property that you cannot necessarily do without, like your asset schools. If you're looking at Joe Kabi, I was told that when we're talking about rationalization, there are schools that are well built with infrastructure and that can accommodate a number of schools, but because of some associated issues are not readily utilized. So we need to do an assessment in terms of before we can say we need to repurpose, because if you are repurposing, there will also be an amount of investment that you need to add there. For instance, if you change that school to a technical school, you need workshops and other things. Even if you're going to convert it into ECT centers, you need to also convert the toilets so that they are suitable and appropriate for younger learners, SP. Potential uses, there is a plethora of ideas and uses that we looked at. Others are internal in the department, others are for external reasons. For example, we do have the 3-stream model that we still need to look at, and what opportunities that is offer for the current challenge that we have on some of the schools that are still having infrastructure that's well built. You've got your early childhood centers that we need to have, and looking at the Bella Act implication that now it's no longer a choice for us, is actually to ensure that we do have as the ECT centers. You also have the issue of the hostel facilities for LACE program, particularly DDG, for the camping sites. But when we're talking about our LACE program, these schools can assist where they really still exist. Office accommodations, we do have good examples for that. I know in OR Tambo Coastal, there's a school that has the CMC for Port St. George is using, Mr. Erasmus sits in that school and his team. And also if you're looking at Alfred West, there's a school that was converted into an office, Ilu Palasi, even though they do have some challenges, but they are optimally utilized for those facilities. And also the warehousing, Jay is not just Mr. Lucas, we are paying a lot for warehousings, and therefore where we do have these facilities, can we then convert them so that these LTSM and everything are delivered at the end instead of us going and hire warehouses elsewhere. Outside, we have got the potential to collaborate with DSOD, your district, in terms of your community development centers, looking at sewing, carpentry, food gardens, arts, and drama. We do have a lot of opportunity for that, especially if you're looking at your former Transkei, the areas along the coast. If we can promote e-tourism, there's a potential for that. The issue of libraries and internet cafes, community health centers, community learning centers, e-community learning centers, those are your ABET things in terms of the modern technology. I know Tina belong in the same age. So yeah, that's it. There are also sub-community service centers that can also take advantage of that. Closely associated to that will be your rehabilitation centers. But in doing that, you need to collaborate or ensure that there's strict adherence to the legislation insofar as planning and zoning, rezoning of the sites for the purpose that we are to agree on. Resources and management issues. We were asked the question, who is responsible for maintaining and safeguarding these sites? Currently, it's not necessarily likely she's no longer with AG. We can talk openly about that. We don't necessarily have a management plan for these schools or to safeguard them. It depends on the situation in each and every school. As a scholar, most of the time are left unattended and they do need security. Maybe because understanding and appreciating the unhealthy status of our finances. When I'm talking about unhealthy, I'm saying is limited, not necessarily that is unhealthy, but just that they are unlimited. They are very limited, so we need to mobilize communities to take responsibilities, also ensure that we conscientize a community policy forum to assist, as well as the issue of local municipalities, because there was a colleague that was coming from Nelson Mandela saying that when we're talking about urban-based districts, is that you have local municipalities, and there are chances that if you are able to market and sell your intentions, they can as well provide security, because in some time this facility can assist. For example, when nobody had ever thought that it's the problem of the incident that happened, floods around June, and therefore if got as scholar municipalities has protected them, those processes, those facilities could have been utilized to accommodate the people that were affected by those floods. To minimize the impact of that disaster. In terms of the resourcing, not necessarily funds, we do understand a challenge that is resources are limited with the department, within the department, but we need to find means and ways of engaging communities and TLCs to assist in terms of providing the security that is required for this particular, to ensure that there's no theft and vandalism of these structures. Because from where we are, we may not necessarily be able to provide to appoint private security to safeguard those institutions. Community involvement, I think around this issue is that our engagement of communities is limited to the implementation of Section 33 to the extent that is only those that attend those meetings, and we take that and get to the MEC and we come back, we close. It's not necessarily an issue that's well attended. Maybe one of the issues that was raised by colleagues is that when you may publicize the issue of those public hearings, but the people that you are likely to get are the unemployed. Those that are well educated and understand, they are not always available. So there's a way of that we need to devise how to engage that even those us after retirement and already after we to participate in these processes to inform decisions. So, and also I think SG did overemphasize this issue of local community participation, because the issues that we may think this is the right decision, and only to find out it is not necessarily addressing their needs. This has been clear in terms of as a scholar that we end up, we're calling them organic closures, because you'll find that they end up being organic closures because of disagreements that were not necessarily entertained, or the consultations being limited in terms of what we're supposed to do. Opportunities for partnerships. Local government is one key structure in terms of human settlements and other things, your IDPs and number of things, particularly the phenomenon of district development model. It does compels us to actually ensure that is when we're planning opening, closing, rationalization, they are informed, so that in terms of other resources that are looked upon, they can also, that requires us to ensure that is we do actively participate at the IGR and also demand accountability, DDG. During Mr. Bongoza's time, we were doing irregular reports in terms of how that process, but it's an issue now we seem to have forsaken that process. So it's an issue that we need to ensure that we reinvent the processes. There are also community-based organizations. There are also faith-based organizations. There are business sectors, NGOs, NPOs. There are sector departments that can also come into the fore. Recommendations and next steps. One of the issues is this current standard operation procedure for the department. Unfortunately, when you're talking about the reprocessing, there is no reference to that except the handing over to the Department of Public Works, but it does not even being explained that process. So we need to ensure that we develop an appropriate standard operation procedure to guide the issue of reposing of a scholar. And we also need to ensure that it's from the very word go, we're talking about Section 33 from the beginning. We work with the Department of Public Works so that we eliminate the red tapes and the dilly-dallies around the final handing over, particularly for those institutions that we say we cannot find usage within the department, but those that we still believe we can repurpose them, we retain them. Pre-closure consultative processes need to be concluded before the actual schools are vacated, because to start after a school cell is vacated, remember at that time you do no longer have any SGPs, you cannot hold anybody responsible. So we need to ensure that our processes are planned in such a way that at the date learners leave, every process has been finalized. We need also to ensure that we review a second school landscape plan to be informed by the available social data, particularly around the issues of repurposing, because the plan itself needs to be a living document. Human settlements do indicate the situation, because what we find, the situation we find ourselves is that we are reacting. I remember one time who raised the issue of sweet waters and the school, that we do not have a school there. We only have Mdantsane, so kids have to cross the road to get to Mdantsane. And yet when you're looking at the sweet waters, is a large settlement area with no school. So the issue of utilizing social data is necessary for us in terms of planning, even in terms of repurposing. We also need to ensure that we're looking at the example that was promoted about KZN as a classical example. Maybe because the issue of its rural nature, but there is something that we need to learn in terms of a comparative study so that we don't repeat the same mistakes that they have tried but failed elsewhere. Short term, we need to ensure that the first thing on short term, we audit and do assessment of existing infrastructure, both planned and closed schools, because not all the schools worth any further investment. I've mentioned that some are shacks or mud schools that themselves pose danger. So we need not necessarily waste our time, but look at schools that are still viable and can be repurposed for the benefit of the department. We need also to ensure that as we update our infrastructure asset management plan as well as asset registers, including the SASMs and MEs, so that we don't have power having its own stats or DDG on the other side having its own numbers in terms of how many schools that we have. You also to ensure that is where we occupying private property, we do serve the required necessary notice to terminate the lease agreement, because if we do not serve that, we are likely to incur a fruitless and wasteful expenditure, because some might stick to their to the lease agreements require you to pay for that penalty. I've talked about in the need to have a standard operation procedure. We also need to ensure that the management plan that we have currently is also reviewed to incorporate the OTP, the local municipalities, in terms of our consultation processes, because we are actually working on a moving train. It's not like we are stationary when it comes to the issue of rationalization and realignment. We also need to ensure that each district participate in the relevant IGR fora within their space. I did motivate that. We also need to ensure that we do provide resources to support the program, because if we do not invest, then we are not likely to succeed. We do know that is in terms of resources available at the district level, there is a challenge. I'm not going to go and explain that in case Nomise follows me up. I did indicate that is GTG before we actually say we agree on a technical school and an agricultural school. Let's look at the feasibility study, whether it's a preliminary one, because a tendency is for communities to say we need a technical school when they see the numbers dropping, and no one actually look at whether it really is feasible, and we just have a technical school or an agricultural school by name, and it really doesn't assist the department. So we do need to ensure that is whatever choices that we are making for repurposing, at least would have done our part in terms of research. We need also to ensure that Executive Council and mobilization of OTP, they support the program. Development and implementation of a communication strategy regarding the process is also done. Resources, I need not overemphasize that process. Long-term DDG in terms of 12 to schools for identification. I guess the issue of ECD centers would appear whether it's in the short term in terms of what's available, but also what you plan in long term. So it's not necessary to say we have to start after 12 months. We need to ensure that those assets that need to be disposed immediately, they can be disposed by following the Giyama Act, assessment of social impact of the closure of the schools in the communities. Probably Nayo is one area that we are encouraged to do. Looking at your long term as well, establishment of list. One of the issues DDG colleagues were saying part of your 3-stream model is the issue of schools of skills. They're saying, colleagues, it would be appreciated that each district, as part of the process, can also look at that possibility. Resourcing of SRRP, redesignation of facilities of the suitability to ensure that is as existing facilities, if they are going to be utilized for ECD centers, are actually tuned to that for that purpose, and ensure that is we do have a monitoring and evaluation strategy to ensure that is the work of the technical committees is regularly monitored and feedback provided, and where we need to adjust plans, we do that. Also ensure that is currently allocation is that districts directors that go through do not, they part-time if they ever participate in this thing. They are saying you only when the HOD or the DDG wants you, but the coordinators are struggling to get audience from you to present. So my urge is that probably we need to develop a framework to ensure that there are meetings that are properly convened at a district level that manages the process so that we do not let it to chance, because if district directors do not champion the program, it's likely to fall flat. Ayabulela mankabane oJeko noqhaza onyazibovu.
Went over by 2 minutes. Give them a very big round of applause. Thank you so much, Majreke. Thanks, Mkabane. Colleagues, can we accept this report? Any mover? Report accepted. Thank you so much. Kosim Kabane. Kosim Kabane. Give him a very big round of applause. I just want to plead with you. Please bear with the process. We are almost there. We shall break for lunch at 2:30. So the next commission is that which stands between us and lunch. The kitchen is ready for 2:30. Then we shall come back for less than an hour just to close the proceedings for the day. So just bear with us, colleagues. Then can we call upon the last commission? Oh, Mr. Jobeni. So I know he's going to save us. He's going to make it possible that by 2:30 we break for lunch. Akakhahlabele nohlabela kuJomini kokwenza lana ayingumntu xa kwanto.
Thank you very much, DDG. And koshoke ngale part yohlabela. Greetings to everyone as per the protocol that was earlier established. I am going to represent Commission number 7. I've just noted something here. I was once in a class where a teacher used to have a chair in front and a desk and sit in that class. And one day, he closed his eyes. And then I raised my hand. I said, "Sir, I'm noticing that you are asleep." He said, no, I'm not asleep. I'm talking to God. And then later, I decided to close my eyes deliberately. Then when I closed my eyes, he said, "You are sleeping in my class." Then I said, "No, I'm not sleeping. I'm talking to God." So I've seen some are talking to God. So please, can we give God a rest for these remaining minutes? Just let's give him a rest and not talk to God. Just allow me to finish, then after that you can talk to God. Maybe when DDG Kyogati is talking, then you can talk to God. But not with me. I'm not sure whether the delay in the connection is deliberate so that I can start a song or what. Maybe it is intentional. Maybe it is intentional, but I think it's coming quickly. In that commission, I noted a lot of people with specializations, agricultural specializations, Mr. Chauke, Mr. Hanekom, engineering. So I'm not sure if, and I'm also engineering, I'm not sure if this presentation was engineered or what, but I do suspect it's specialized or engineered. When I was a natural sciences teacher, I will also try get Dr. Mtingi to mix between his Xhosa and English. I did not know what to do anymore. One time I was teaching natural sciences, and no, it's not this one. Yeah. No, it's not this one. The one that I put is in the USB. Okay. It's written Commission 7. Go to the folder written Commission 7. Commission 7? Yes, that one. Yeah. So one day I was teaching about inhlanzi. This teacher ngesixhosa ke kulento ye MTBBE. Teacher ngenhlanzi xa ndigqibo teacher xa uyi-good teacher uyabuza, did you hear everything? Is it fine? And then one child said, I know. I another question, but I teach fish kakuhle. So one ngoma kuba ndiyayiteach fish. Then I decided this MTBBE thing, Mr. Zenzile, it's not helping me. So let me rather stick to English so that I don't get any confusion. Then I was busy teaching natural sciences. I was busy teaching about onions. In fact, it was just vegetables, but I arrived at teaching about onions. Then when I finished, I asked the same question. Did you hear any question? Then they said, no. One boy said, no, sir, so I ended up confused now whether to teach in isiXhosa, because when I teach in isiXhosa ngenhlanzi, they say in the teach fish. When I teach in English, then they say I'm teaching about onions, but in teach amatswele. I ended up being lost. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm representing a commission where Umamu Bula was the facilitator, Umamu Tabula no, as well as Mr. Chauke, they were scribes, and it was a rich team with colleagues from everywhere. Then I just remembered this. This is a slide that the Director General has been presenting in the engagements, which is from World Economic Forum. I think I'm getting close to being a doctor. I also cite, so I'm getting there. From World Economic Forum, you can see Future of Jobs report. You can see the picture. It tells the story. But this was also my interest to check what are the top fastest growing jobs. And then I noted that they all have something to do with either data or engineering. For instance, data specialists, engineers, developers like software developers. Some of them are talking about artificial intelligence and all that. The list goes on. But you can see that this is the direction that we should be taking. I'm saying this as we are in this process to consider that and to make sure to use it as an opportunity to actually refocus and check what is it that the country needs in terms of economical side of it. Then those ones are the fast declining jobs. If you start from the bottom, you will see that telemakers, legal secretaries, and so on and so on. But if you check from the top, like postal services, even bank tellers, interestingly, I'm not sure if you have picked up that the number of ATMs are really declining. They are being closed because now we are going to paperless banking and all that. So it's increasing on the other side, it's decreasing on the other side. But let's look at what as a commission we're tasked to do. I think it's just short 3 things, of which one is about curriculum and policy and curriculum alignment. How does the SRRP support rollout of the 3 streams model? So our focus is basically on 3 streams model, which is actually a response to a problem that was picked up, that we tend to be focusing on academic side of it. When I wanted to do engineering, that's how I ended up being a teacher as well, is because now I saw that I need to wear tie in what I do. That's why every time, Mr. Mabona, I wear tie and you don't wear one. So I did electrical engineering. After that, I realized that no, this job of electrical engineering is for people. I was labeled that is for people who are not smart up here. So it affected me as well to change and to come to a job which is going to make me wear tie. But it's something that we must change. It's a mentality that we must change now. But generally, the three streams model, after identifying that, of course, the focus is more on academic side of it when we know that we are having also the other skills that we need. So we check at how the rollout is going to assist us or to support the three streams model. And then curriculum offerings aligned with community and labor market needs. So what we discussed, and those were very interesting debates. If we can use this opportunity, we are coming from that premise as well. If we can use this opportunity that the schools are rebranded and upgraded to offer all the three streams, because we've got academic, which we all know, then there is vocational as well as occupational, so which is focusing more on skills. Then in terms of matching, we are very careful, as Mr. Pai was indicating, the issues of feasibility study and all that. So these are the considerations that need to be done. And we also do have success stories. Mama Kwete, I don't see where you are. I remember when I left the district, OR Tambo Inland, the former Mtata district, there was a school called Mtichwa. That school was closed down, but when it was opened, it was repurposed to be a technical school, and it's actually, when you check the results, it's actually doing well now. So that is a success story. There are success stories. Mr. Anekom was mentioning Nompendulo. I don't know whether it's a success story or what. There may be many of those stories. So we are saying the merging underutilized schools allows investment in better equipped schools for occupational and vocational training, and it enables the placement of specialized teachers like in agriculture, carpentry, ICT, etc. And then it also ensures schools offer programs that directly reflect all the three streams, not just traditional academic subjects. Realignment helps bring diverse education stream closer to rural and underserved areas, making the three streams model more inclusive, as well as relevancy of subjects offered, or subjects offered, not supporting the needs of immediate community it serves. So we want now relevant subjects as indicated there. So in terms of infrastructure and resources, we also, the question was based on facilities, whether facilities or equipment is available for occupational, vocational, and academic streams. Well, the answer is no. There is not really, because we still have a few of those. Then there are gaps there, particularly focusing on funding. So lack of appropriate equipment. In some instances, we discovered that old machinery and equipment is not relevant. Like for instance, in order for you, when those schools are having workshops, they need a certain voltage, and then you find out that they are not getting. So the workshop is there, machinery is there, but in order for this machine to work, it needs to be connected to a three-phase connection, not a single phase. So as well as certain voltages that must be there. So there are some schools like that. Then another example is obviously the old engines that are there for those who are doing mechanical. I think it was raised sharply that they are old engines. And now we're talking of electric cars and all that. But when you check what is it that we are teaching, you find out that even the equipment that is there is still old, and they are current engines. Some of them are no longer having carburetors, they are having injectors, fuel injectors, and so on. So those are the things that must be considered, because we feel like this is a lack thereof. And then inappropriate infrastructure for the focus schools, including technical workshops, resource constraints, and overcrowding in classes. So that's why we are noting, for instance, in the guidelines and regulations, learners who go to technical workshop must be less than 20, I think about 15 to a maximum of 20. But you'll find those classes overcrowded, unavailability of hostel facilities. This is another one which we are not experts in, but we were saying in a school that is a focus school, remember that school is offering literally those subjects. If it's a technical school, it must offer technical subjects only. And this is the battle we are fighting. And it confuses everybody in the country, all provinces. I was making an example about one province that when I was in the past 4 years, as I was working for DPE, then the school, the report, the province said we have 175 focus schools. The following year, they realized that no, these are not focus schools. They said we have got 150. Then in 2023, they said no, the real focus schools are 7. And then now they are saying we have got 12. So it means even us in the system are confused what is a focus school. But in this presentation and the folder that I'm going to leave is also having guidelines on focus schools. What is a focus school? What makes a focus school? Because it's very important. And hostel is a must, for instance, because in a community, for instance, in my location in Dukwa, in Lota, a rural area, we have a technical school there. But now, if we make it a focus school as we have made, does it mean that children of that community must only do technical subjects? Because we're supposed now to be having a hostel which attracts everyone who wants to do a hostel, wants to come from all over the Eastern Cape to come and stay in that hostel. And then we have hostel elsewhere for a person like me who doesn't want to do technical subjects. Now, communities find themselves in trouble, having to balance between wanting this focus school as well as wanting their children to benefit. Because now, you can't have it a community with a focus school. There is no hostel, and they cannot be accommodated elsewhere. So these are the challenges. Insufficient initial and operational budget, I think it answers second bullet there, that we're having funding gaps there. A refined funding model in ensuring that TSM is prioritized is also not there. Incentives to attract appropriately qualified teachers as well as artisans. For technical, you need artisans. Because now children, they go there when they have to do practicals. Then sometimes there is a gap, and we need people who are artisans, who are going to make sure that learners have those skills. Then lastly, which is the last slide, the last slide before we recommend, second last one before we go for recommendations. Are educators trained to deliver the new stream? What capacity gaps exist? So we first identified leadership. It links with resourcing. Because, for instance, there is program 2, Mr. Joseph, that you transfer funds to schools that are offering technical subjects. Because most of our schools, as I indicated, they are not necessarily focus schools for certain subjects like technical, but they are schools offering technical subjects. So my chief director, Mamupula, always corrects me and say, don't call that school a technical school, call it a school offering technical subjects. Don't call it a maritime school, call it a school offering maritime subjects, because it's not only offering maritime subjects, it's more of a comprehensive school. So the challenge in school leadership is in this form, that you will find, for instance, I was visiting maritime schools, and then the funds that are transferred there are not used for the purpose of maritime. So they fix broken windows, they even cater for learners. When there is need for painting, they paint, and some of them use that opportunity to employ SGB paid teachers with that money which is only received by learners who are doing maritime subjects. So in other words, now it's not helping us to grow the maritime subjects, because now the money is not used appropriately. Then there's also, so leadership is also a serious challenge. So where we are saying, now we need to refocus and say, in the post, this is what is going to come up in the recommendations. In the posts now that are coming, we must make sure if it's a technical school, it must be a person with a technical background, at least, so that you can be able to understand the needs of technical education. Shortage of teachers and subject advisors that are specialists in focused field. So we have, in the Eastern Cape, I did a quick audit, and I found out that there are 4 specializations that we have. We don't have 5 other specialists for other 5 specializations. For instance, we don't have anyone for the field. So we have, in the Eastern Cape, I did that mathematics is having more weight there. I think that's the training that is needed also in the PPN, because you'll find out that practical subjects like technical subjects, arts subjects, and so on, the weighting in the PPN is clear, but it is not utilized. I was even shocked that there is a practice, which I don't know, maybe people who are doing it are actually saying it's a way to go, but I say no. Where a post for another school will be used in another school. So that school is having more posts because it's having arts subjects, for instance, technical subjects, but that post is taken and used in another school which is not offering. Things like that one. But we need to say it must favor focus schools. Salary levels, I think I spoke about that one, heavy workloads. I spoke about that one as well. Then before we go to recommendations, learner access and pathways, here we are saying advocacy, advocacy, advocacy all the way. But we are saying in GEC already, we are having a test called inclination test that we can use. It's a test I would like all of us to challenge ourselves and go and research about GEC. There's something good in GEC. Definitely it has its own challenges, but something good, there is an inclinations test that learners, they are given a questionnaire to respond. And then after responding to those questions, it investigates how are they created or their thinking and all that. For instance, a question like, do you enjoy yourself when you are alone or where you are with people? Then if you say you are a person who wants to be alone, one who prefers to be alone, and then now you want, but the course that you want to do is a course which deals with people, like nursing, for instance. That's why we will find people in hospitals not able to treat people well, and so on, because their inclinations, they were not supposed to be dealing with people. They were supposed to be doing jobs that they stay alone and do the work. So inclinations in GET, it is one area that we can tap onto and strengthen it and expand. Even though it's being piloted, we can expand that part of inclinations. And it's usually a link that can be completed by anyone so that children do it. I guess those who are top managers or senior managers of the department, they know a similar test like that one that you go through, where you go through it and the results tell you what kind of a person are you. So it will tell you your inclinations. And then career guidance in lower grades. One of the challenges we are having now, career guidance, I usually get annoyed when I'm invited to a career guidance because I ask which learners are being targeted. Grade 12 is too late for career guidance. You need to guide them before they choose subjects in grade 10. So that they choose subjects correctly. It's painful when we see a learner say, I want to do engineering, but is doing mathematical literacy. You can't do engineering with mathematical literacy. But now in grade 12, you are told, and it's even worse, it pains me when I listen to those, and it discourages children that I've chosen subjects that are incorrect, that are not aligned with my career. It must be done in earlier grades. So we do it, but we are doing it wrongly mainly. I don't know how many career guidances have you attended that are dealing with grade 12 or even grade 11. They are already late. Then resourcing equipment, I think we talked about that one. Advocacy, 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 using role models and so on. I think we're going to talk about it in recommendations. Promote starting small projects by learners in schools. This is a way of attracting learners to know that this thing that I'm doing is actually going to help me. As a maths teacher, I've had to answer questions even today. Solve for X, what is it going to help us in? So I have to explain that what is it that it teaches? Problem solving skills, creative thinking, and critical thinking and so on. But people, they don't understand. But when you start to use mathematics now practically and say, this is what mathematics is helping you in. Additional certification for learners who are having skills, they need to be certificated so that they can be accepted somewhere. Partnerships with relevant industries, we are sleeping on duty sometimes when it comes to partnerships. We need to partner with that. Then lastly, recommendations, short-term, advocacy, advocacy, advocacy. I'm repeating it deliberately. Campaigns on vocational and occupational streams. Let me tell you, one of the problems we are having is us. Even in schools, when children are not doing well, maybe academically, instead of trying to find out and assisting the child and guiding correctly, we say, "Hi nina, ambani edutwa kokudla ngothiwa yanetheko." To hi ambani yanetheko nina. With technical school. So it's like now a technical or a vocational, let me say vocational and occupational is necessary for stupid people or something. Even myself, I've been labeled like that one. So this thing needs to change. We must do advocacy. Radio stations, road shows. I've got a short video here. I'm not sure if it's going to play because it was suggested in the group that we must source it from DPE. DPE is having these videos. Chief Director, Mrs. Bula, shared this with us, explaining about three streams model. Proper assessment of schools to be repurposed. What Mr. Pai was talking about, I don't need to emphasize, I think it has been mentioned. Establishment of focus schools committee. This is very important, that we must have it, as well as district coordinators, in order to expand the focus schools. Appointment of relevant principals, I spoke about it. Purpose-driven allocation of additional budget, I spoke about it. Consideration of PPN for three streams model schools or focus schools, as well as special schools. Salary levels of technicians, artisans, etc. for focus schools. Establishment, when you check, there are districts without even a single focus school, and that is unacceptable. So we need to use this opportunity to establish some focus schools. Simulations to close the gap in under-resourced schools. Now, there is no need. For instance, there was a debate whether you need in order to offer maritime subjects, do you need to be closer to sea? No. I've got Gauteng schools that I know that offer maritime subjects. Is there a sea in Gauteng? There is no sea. So what is this? Where is this thing coming from? That a school that must offer maritime subjects must be from Gauteng. And we can tap onto the first one, which is less resourceful, which is called maritime economics. We're talking oceans economy. And as the Eastern Cape, we were supposed to be having more of those schools, because we're having the longest belt in terms of the sea. Right? And then a strengthening of existing partnerships, I talk about it. Medium terms, strengthening of financial accountability. The funds that are dispersed to schools must be used appropriately for the purpose. Registration of artisans, this is a big one that needs to be taken care of in terms of them being paid appropriately. Foster more community involvement, more purposeful upskilling of existing educators, bridging programs, migrating from one stream to another. It's a bad thing if, as a system, we will have a situation where we create a cul-de-sac. And currently, and this is I was in the task team before I left DPE last year. I was in the task team for this to say, we need to extend occupational stream to be even at FET, because now we're having an occupational stream up to grade 9 or year 1 to year 4, and then after that, where do children go? So there's no proper articulation. They need to now try and find their way back to maybe vocational. So we really need to make sure that we fix that one. And then community involvement, I spoke about it. At the establishment of at least one focus school, I think I talk about it. But we say in every category. Then strong collaborations with industry, higher education, institutions, and community organizations. That is all the stakeholders. Then in terms of long-term, attracting of artisans through incentives, as well as ensuring that at least one focus school per district, at least. And then that is that one. I'm not sure if it's gonna play as I learned. I just wanted to leave by sharing a video. And this is just an example of a video which is explaining exactly what is three streams model. And we decided to put it in that folder so that people, when they receive this, it can be clear what is three streams model, what is it all about, what does it do, so that at the end of the day, when we do this advocacy, we are all clear about what is three streams model, and so on and so on. I'm not gonna, this was developed at DPE, and they continue to explain 3 pathways: 1 academic, 2 vocational, and 3 occupational. And in this video, it explains academic, it goes to that one, addressing what is in the caps generally, and then it goes to, it has got diverse options and so on, and then it goes to the second stream, which is vocational, and then it explains what is it that is there. And then these are, for instance, examples of focus schools that we can tap to that respond to the 3 streams model. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mfana Selote. He has also saved us 2 minutes. Give him a very big round of applause. I will not tell them, but ipina ilot. Thank you so much, colleagues. Do we accept this report? Thank you so much. Give the commission a very resounding round of applause. Thank you. Colleagues, We have now come to the end of commissions. Thank you so much to all the rapporteurs. And can we give all of them, the 7 of them, a round of applause? What we are going to do now to manage time is that we shall break, I request you, we shall break for 30 minutes. Let's make it 30 minutes. Breaking for lunch, meaning that at 3:10, can we all be back? Because by 4 o'clock, we want to be out of this place. So Mr. Jwagati is going to take us through for the next session, which is the last session. So can you lead us to lunch? Organizers, any instructions, any guidance? Annalisa is here to guide us. Okay.
Good afternoon, colleagues. Akho nto intsha njengayizolo kuzawuhamba i-guest as well as DDGs and chief directors to their station, but just have to wait for them to go and dish them themselves. Then we can follow.
In other words, abacos remain abacos. We still go where they were directed yesterday. Thank you.